Hello everyone. So I figured I would quickly sit down and record something that I actually wrote back in June of this year when WayV actually first released their first full-length album, Awaken the World. So based on the lyrics of the tracks on the album, I was able to kind of string together a loose narrative that works across the album, and like I wrote it down and shared it on social media. And so just to get people hyped up again about WayV's next comeback, which the guys have already spoiled, should be coming up soon. I figured I would just sit down and quickly voice record what I wrote back then and kind of just introduce people that may be more new to WayV to kind of the general lore of WayV's universe, starting off with the Awaken the World album being the latest release and being the full-length album, their first full-length album, and the most recent one in my memory, the most fresh one that I have written about. I thought this was a good place to start. I've also written an analysis for Take Over the Moon as well. So if you're interested, let me know and I can go ahead and record that one too for your listening pleasure. So let's go ahead and get started. So Awaken the World starts off with the title track, Turn Back Time. And so very generally, this song kind of serves as the mission statement of the album. It gives you kind of the overview of what this album is going to be about, which, as we'll go on to explain, is basically my interpretation is that it's a process, it's a journey of the guys kind of waking up from a sort of false or kind of deceptive dream world and then turning back time in order to begin their journey again. So the song specifically talks about, makes references to undoing the wrongs of the past and fixing the mistakes they've made. So, wishing that they could turn back time and then begin again, this time making sure they don't make the same mistakes again. So that kind of sets up the mission statement of the album moving forward, right? So second track is Bad Alive. So on the surface, Bad Alive is a rather kind of braggadocious song, hyping themselves up as being kind of the baddest people alive and easily able to get to the top via kind of deceptive and less than fair methods. So there are references in the lyrics of the song, the Chinese version, of course, where they kind of hint at using rather manipulative methods or weaving illusions in order to kind of influence people and get what they want. So for me, I read this as kind of the character of WayV in this album. So WayV falling victim to the temptations that are mentioned in the lyrics of Turn Back Time and fully immersing themselves in this kind of false dream world because it fulfills their desires, but it is done through a way that kind of corrupts their morality over time. Because in the Turn Back Time tracks lyrics, they do make reference to kind of the temptations of the mortal world and wanting to turn back time, also in the sense of kind of returning to a more innocent state of mind before they kind of started off on the journey of kind of human life. There are some interesting references to kind of Buddhist philosophy in the song. which we can talk about if you're interested, but just for the sake of this recording, we won't get into it because it's a little bit complicated and to explain, and I would have to pull up my notes on those things. So back to Bad Alive. So on the surface, it's this kind of braggadocious song depicting, not on the surface, but in the narrative of the album, Bad Alive is this kind of song depicting WayV falling into temptations and using slightly morally questionable means to get what they want, right? But also, if you just want to look at the song without trying to tie it into the narrative of the album, it's just a really well written, I'm bad and large and in charge type of song, but it has some more kind of wavy specific references that are sprinkled in the lyrics themselves that make it a little bit more interesting than just a, I'm bad, I'm great, I'm cool, kind of everyone wants me type of song that you would normally see. All right, and then this is followed up by track 3, which is Unbreakable. So this song again takes place in this kind of false dream world. So in the context of the album, this song expresses a desire to remain in that false dream world where, um, for all intents and purposes, WayV has their object of desire or their love in their hands, and then but the fear of waking up in the middle of the night to an empty, painful world without their love constantly haunts them. So this track provides kind of additional explanation for the motives that WayV, the character WayV, may have to want to remain in this dream or false existence, right? Illusory, what's the word? Illusion, right? A false illusion of the world, despite the world causing them harm, right? There are references to actual bodily harm and physical wounds in the lyrics, right? So, but again, if you want to read it more straightforwardly without accounting for kind of the narrative of the album, it's just a really well written love song about this painful longing you have for a lost loved one and wishing for their love to, wishing for your love, the love between you, to be truly unbreakable and everlasting, right? And then track 4 follows with After Midnight, right? So After Midnight, everyone thinks of it as kind of Love Talk Part 2. And on the surface, without looking at the context of the album, it is basically that. It's a song about staying up all night and indulging yourself with your loved ones, right? It's full of joy and vibrancy and living life to the fullest in the moment, all of that good stuff. But again, I think if you look at it in the context of the album, it's this euphoric, joyful, kind of indulgent moment in this love. But despite it being so euphoric and full of life, the song the lyrics kind of emphasizes the fact that the existence of this love is still limited, right? It talks about how it exists only between, specifically after midnight and until the early morning. Those are the actual words in the song. And then there's another line about how no one is waking up tonight, again, kind of suggesting how intangible this moment of joy with their loved one really is, right? So it is a beautiful dream, but it's still a dream. It's ultimately not reality, no matter how beautiful it feels. At this point, we move into track 5, which is Interlude, Awaken the World, right? Which is like an instrumental interlude track. So presumably here is the moment where WayV, the character WayV, has to wake up. So this is the time when the sun rises and they must leave their dream world with all of its temptations, beauty, joy, pain, and sadness, and begin to face the real world on the second half of the album, which begins with track 6 being Only Human, right? Very fittingly, Only Human is a track that kind of takes WayV back to those vulnerable moments where they're faced um, with some sort of failure and have to start over and return to their beginning, right? Kind of hearkening back to the message in Turn Back Time, right? The lyrics talks about questioning, having all of these conflicting questions they have for themselves and how to navigate this world full of judgment and disappointments. So effectively, this depicts the process of kind of waking up to the true, more unfeeling and apathetic nature of the world, right? Where not necessarily everyone cares about what you are going through. Um, and that process of starting all over again after failure, right? It's a more subdued and melancholic and lonely type of track, but also a little bit hopeful because it still echoes the fact that this is a universal experience that we all have as human beings, right? So none of us are really truly ever alone in our experiences. And then in addition, this track also talks about how despite us being only human, all of us are capable of impacting the people around us and more broadly, the world around us in really significant ways, right? Leaving behind our own history. Um, Doing this takes sacrifice and hardship, but being human and the existence of humanity itself is powerful in its potential. Um, they also talk about towards the end, they sing about how it's so hard to say goodbye. And I think here, the sentiment is also a little bit about how sometimes it's hard to face our own very human shortcomings. And that disconnect you can feel between kind of the exhilaration of being a celebrated star, a performer, versus when it all ends and having to kind of return to a much more mundane human existence. So yeah, I think it's a great song, basically. So following Only Human, where we get a more kind of personal, more authentic, not authentic, but just a more personal, more realistic um, depiction of some of the experiences that we all share as human beings. We move on to the next track, which is Domino. So Domino is pretty interesting because the concept of the song is about a love that is unequal or unbalanced, like domino pieces falling over, right? So it's about a relationship where one person is giving more than the other. So the way it's set up, the way it's written, it basically is like the listener never fully opens their heart to WayV or whoever is singing the song, right? But in terms of the album, I think it works if you look at it as more realistically understanding the nature of the relationship that might have been depicted in the previous half of the album in tracks like Unbreakable and After Midnight, right? So since this is after they've already woken up, it's on the second half of the album, it's clear now in the light of day that WayV are much more invested and have given much more of themselves into this relationship. So it's further supporting that theme of it's time to wake up and face the reality of how this is ultimately an unhealthy relationship that's hurting WayV, right? So going from there, we have track 8, which is up from there, up from here, up from there, up from here. So in contrast to WayV, this is a new relationship founded on friendship and mutual comfort and mutual understanding and respect. You guys have to understand that this is such a cute, cute, cute song. It kind of really perfectly captures the sort of awkward but super exciting realization that two people that have been friends for a long time have. You know, that realization, that spark where you realize that there might be some deeper feelings involved. In terms of the flow of the album, this is a kind of much needed, happier and healthier and hopeful relationship that's being depicted on this track, in that it is much more rooted in reality and not just fantasy and, you know, midnight rendezvous. So this is kind of the song is a depiction of a really super sweet and adorable beginnings of a healthier, much healthier, loving relationship based on friendship. And then you have track 9, which is Electric Hearts, which you can take as a progression of this new healthy relationship that started initially in Up From Here, the previous track. It's really just friggin' cute. There's a lot of lovely promises being made in the song lyrics. It's a lot more brighter. It's not more brighter. It's much brighter and much more hopeful than the tracks in the first half of the album prior to the interlude. So specifically here you have promises of a bright and hopeful future versus before with the repeated images of darkness and pain and longing, where even the times that you do spend together were under the cover of darkness, right? Like in tracks like After Midnight. Here in Electric Hearts, everything is bright and happy. There's a confirmation of mutual feelings, basically saying that by waking up, WayV has found the quote unquote you, right? And together they're now able to spread this love that they've found everywhere, right? They can spread it anywhere they want to without hindrance and obstacles, bringing joy to people all over the world, with their electric hearts, right? Electric hearts being kind of meaning like alive and loving and happy hearts. So here there's an interesting transition that kind of happens with the messaging of the album, right? You go from a much more personal love story that's being depicted between two individuals in Up From Here to this kind of more universal love, right? And the message of the song ends with kind of transitioning into talking about the ability of WayV to spread love beyond just the romantic variety. So I thought that was very cleverly done, kind of transitioning from a more personal story to kind of a more bigger message about love and spreading love in general. All right, and then finally we wrap up the album with track 10, Stand By Me. Basically, it's a fan song with celestial references, which are, you know, WayV's thing. Again, it emphasizes that WayV's goal now is to be kind of a source of strength for their fans. They promise to stand by you and ask if you will stand by them in return. And I thought this track wraps up the album really well, right? We are now all kind of fully awake and ready to face the real world, but we know that, you know, we are not alone when we have to face difficulties and disappointments. There's nothing to fear kind of in waking up if we have people to support us in the real world, right? People that are standing by us. So again, I really like how they managed to shift from this more personal romantic love story to a bigger concept of love and support for each other as we all struggle to navigate through our lives. So very thankful and lucky to have WayV to keep us company in our journeys. And that wraps up my analysis for WayV's Awaken the World album. Please leave a like and subscribe if you want. If you've enjoyed the analysis, if you have any questions or comments, leave it in the comments below. Like I said, I've written other analysis things before for WayV, so let me know if you want to have me record any of those, or if there's any specific questions or things you're interested in discussing. Yeah, I think my my analysis of takeover take take over the take over the moon is still probably my favorite, just because it's a mini album, so it's like a tighter narrative. And I thought like a slightly better, um more focused concept album than Awaken the World. Even though I also really enjoyed Awaken the World, I still think Take Over the Moon is my favorite so far. But yeah, really looking forward to the comeback, and hope everyone that listens to me ramble has a great rest of their day. Take care. Bye bye.